Good evening, everyone. We're going to open the Inlands, Wetlands, and Watercourse Commission for the town of Trumbull for July 2nd, 2024. I'm going to ask our clerk, Colleen, to do a roll call.
Richard Gerard,
Present.
John Loria,
Here.
Carmine DeFeo,
Present.
Rich Deacon,
Present.
David Verespi,
Present.
Greg Cernica,
Present.
Robert Ferrigno,
Present.
town staff Tatiana Solovey,
Here.
John Mayer,
Here.
and attorney Jim Cordone.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, as always, I would ask our town attorney to give us the legal aspect of doing a video conference meeting, if you would, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As has been our practice, the regularly scheduled meeting of the Trumbull Inland Wetlands and Watercourse meeting is taking place over video conference and teleconference on the internet and telephone pursuant to Connecticut law. During the public comment period on an application, which there will be tonight, there is a public hearing that's been continued. You may be recognized to speak by electronically raising your hand, or if on the phone dialing *9, those instructions will be given again at that time. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the town website in advance of tonight's meeting, along with supporting application materials. Please note that posting comments on any sort of online format, such as Facebook Live or other similar formats, will not be included in the record, and the commission will not see those comments. I would ask all commissioners and participants to kindly remember to please identify yourself before speaking for the benefit of those who may be only listening by phone. Lastly, I would ask that all votes be conducted by roll call unless the vote is unanimous. And finally, tonight's meeting is being recorded. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, we're going to open new business, application 24-20, Lawrence Mucciolino, I believe. It's a permitted approval for previously placed fill and installation of a detention galleries within a regulated area at 139 Canoe Brook Road. And I see Jason Edwards, and I also see the applicant.
Good evening, Jason Edwards here. J. Edwards Associates, Engineers, Surveyors. I'm here. My firm prepared the engineering design plan and submitted the application on behalf of Mr. Mucciolino. I believe maybe Stephen Danzer is our environmental expert that's also supposed to be on. What level of presentation would you like me to go through on this? Is this something that's going to be a public hearing, or are we just determining that today?
Well, basically, I remember, I think this was a previously approved application, and there's something about soil or something was put into one of the wetlands areas. So if you can give us an overall,
Sure.
review of the project and what had happened. All right.
Sure thing. Yep. Can I share my screen, please?
Sure.
Mr. Edwards, Mr. Danzer is here. Just want to let you know that.
Okay, good. Thank you. Everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. This is the latest plan set. This property is, I'm just going to give a quick satellite or aerial image here, show everybody where we are. This is the home here. We're on Park Lane, Canoe Brook Road, and it does front. It's not actually where that orange arrow is, it's this one here. This is Canoe Brook Lake here, so it has lake frontage. The property was formerly a single-family residence. I think it was bought in, I'm not 100% positive on the timeline, but somewhere in the around 2015, 2017 timeframe, the house was torn down and then subsequently rebuilt. The applicant went through all the permitting process for that, got wetlands permits, got approved, and worked his way through that plan through COVID and through all that time. So it took a little bit longer than anticipated. But we've now, let me see if I've got the old site plan here. So this is the as-built plan with new drainage design overlaid. You can see that there's a wetlands obviously along Cooper Lake, and then there's a wetlands stream or some sort of a wetlands pocket that comes down along the south side of the property, and then comes up right into the yard area here. The original approved design included less impervious area than what was actually built. So what my office really has done is we prepared the original drainage design, and now we've prepared a updated drainage design to account for that additional impervious area. So that includes, sorry. So there was additional patios and decks that were constructed here that were not originally approved, as well as there's a patio down here. And I think the driveway also expanded slightly. So what it resulted in is a significant increase in the size of the detention area. The stormwater system that was built and designed per the original approval is this light dash one here. And we're proposing to add another about 112 feet of 112 feet of concrete galleries here to account for that additional runoff. Or impervious area. We provided, engineering calculations and design report to Tatiana, the town engineer, for review. I don't believe we've gotten anything back on that yet. We just submitted it, but we're proposing to route the stormwater all into this, and then outlet back down here. Same outlet that was originally proposed. We'd have a temporary construction access along the north side that would come down to do that work. The larger issue, I guess, is the wetlands pocket here that I'm circling with my cursor. If you can see that, it's wetlands flags 8 through 18. During the construction process, for some reason, the wetlands boundary wasn't well defined, I guess, in the field. So some topsoil and fill got placed into this. I think Mr. Danzer's on today. He can probably explain better what the current condition of that is. So I'll pass it over to him in a moment here. But I just wanted to look at the comparative plan just to show what was the red is what was originally approved, and then obviously the black is what was built. So the difference would be the driveways here. Now this driveway was actually a pre-existing driveway that was identified as to be removed in the last plans, last approval, but that has now become the main access for the home, so that the applicant would like to keep that driveway. So we've upsized the detention area to account for that, yeah, just to give you an idea of what was built versus what was originally approved. At this point, I can either take some questions now, or I can ask Mr. Danzer. This is the wetlands mitigation plan that Mr. Danzer and Ms. Tracy Chalafo prepared to address that wetlands issue that I discussed. So I guess I can turn it over to them, or I can answer questions on my part of it.
Okay, before we do that, let's get Mr. Danzer to come on and explain what part and where the wetlands were filled.
Okay, I assume everyone can hear me. My name is Steve Danzer, Principal Stephen Danzer and Associates LLC with office in Stamford, Connecticut. I guess I can explain this a little bit, and I guess I'm gonna rely on Jason Edwards to move the cursor around.
Sure.
I think that'd be the easiest way to do this. First off, I did not originally flag these wetlands. These wetlands were flagged many years ago with a previous consultant team. I did not even have the opportunity to see what these wetlands looked like before they were disturbed, other than going through a couple of aerial photographs. Under existing conditions, you would not know the that area that intrudes wetland flag 18 from 8 to 18, that little finger, you would, under existing conditions today, you would not even know there's a wetland out there. It just blends in with the lawn. There's something between 6 inches and 1.5 feet, depending on where you are, of fill that got essentially smushed over when they put the lawn in, and they probably had some excess material when they when they reworked the edge of the house. So unfortunately, the wetland right now does not exist. I'm not convinced that when it comes back, it's going to do a whole lot of additional functions, even with our plantings, to be honest, because it's just in a very awkward place. As you can tell, there's a wetland finger, and then kind of south of wetland flag 14 to 18, there's upland, and then you have the stream corridor, and it's just very awkwardly kind of placed in the backyard. That said, what we have prepared, myself and Tracy Chalafone, I apologize she's not here. She did significant amount of the design, so if this goes to public hearing, she can answer the more detailed questions about this. But essentially, we approach this like we'd approach any other project. We're recommending that the fill more or less comes out, at least down to native soils. The interior of that wetland finger will be replanted with majority of that area will be with wetland seed mix, and as you can see, the periphery will be replanted with trees and shrubs. And we to kind of mitigate the fact that the wetland buffer is a little bit less than what was there before all this disturbance happened. To mitigate for that, or rather to compensate for that, we proposed plantings all the way up and down the stream corridor, all the way from wetland flag number 1 near where the stream corridor originates adjacent to the road, all the way down to the very bottom. So we just figured they're better suited to enhance and improve that habitat than other areas, within the wetland area. So that's basically it. It's not the largest of areas. It's not the most like I said, it's not the most interesting of areas, but for what it is, it's a wetland, and the fill needs to come out, and that's essentially what we're proposing.
Hey, let me ask you a question on this. We will be walking this. Would you be able to outline what was the original?
Yeah. And or we could ask Jay Edwards to put new survey flags in, but I could be available. Be happy to.
Yeah, we can certainly do that too, yeah, if you'd like us to.
All right, before I go to the commission, Tatiana, do you have any comments? Or John?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. So the driveway, the new that was not on the original permit, how is that routed to the additional system? I did not see any inlets or trench drains. So I was wondering if you do need to connect it via piping, because it doesn't seem that it's getting to that one existing drain on the south end.
Yeah, I don't see it on this plan either, so I'll have to get back to you on that. I am 99% sure that it is connected down to here. I don't know where that piping goes. One of the engineers in my office did this design, so I'll have to talk with him and clarify that with you.
Yeah, and I guess that piping, the connection between this yard drain to the stormwater system, but also the question is about the driveway that was not on the original plan. The north side of the driveway, basically. All of this, how is that getting to the stormwater system? I'm not sure. It might be bypassing the drain, so if you could look.
Yeah, we'll have to look at the report and see. I know it was a discussion point in my office, so they did address it. We'll just have to clarify that with you as to what they did.
Okay, and then it was mentioned that it's recommended that the fill is removed from the wetlands. I'm not too clear how would you tie that to existing grading. There are boulders, but no retaining wall, so it's just not too clear. I think it would be beneficial to provide a grading plan if you are removing it per original approved plan. And just to clarify, so it says EX red. So are those existing trees that per original approved wetlands application?
I'm sorry, what was the first thing you said there?
So, well, first thing I mentioned is the grading plan, but second
Yeah, that one.
question is about the trees. Have all the plantings been installed per original wetlands permit? And are you just adding on top of that, or are
Oh.
they incorporated in this? How does that work?
I don't know. Steve, do you know the answer to that question?
Yes, as far as, well, there were, I believe there are some plantings that have been installed on the property that were upland and that were part of it, but by and large, the wetland plantings were not planted on there. I can't answer to the existing things. I think Tracy should be there to address
I'm the
that.
homeowner. I can answer that if you want.
Oh.
This is Larry
If you,
Mucciarino.
excuse me, sir, you have to
Yeah.
identify yourself, give your
Yes.
address
Larry Mucciarino, I'm the owner. The
and your
ones that
address.
are-
Thank you.
yes. The ones that Tatiana is asking about that say existing, those were added trees. And there's roughly 7 added trees. The birch in the back and the red buds on the side, 1 cherry. There's a couple pears on the road.
Oh, here, okay.
These 2 trees, this, yes, and the one in the back. And those were added. The rest of them haven't been put in yet. I stopped putting anything else in until this was approved.
Okay, so I guess then, does this landscaping plan incorporate the plantings that were approved in 2017 permit? That's the question.
There is some changes in
Mhm.
the actual trees themselves. It's roughly the same number of trees and about in the same areas, but there was some changes that were suggested to us, and they're native suggestions, but they made some changes.
And I asked you who made these suggestions.
That came from the environmental people, one of
Yes.
which is here and the other, Tracy is not.
Yeah,
Okay.
so basically, we looked at the old planting plan and we basically updated it to current site conditions, and we saw there were some, what we thought, some obvious room for improvement as far as like selection of species. There were some previous species that it's just that Tracy was not comfortable putting on plans, not the ones she usually works with or that she could vouch would survive in a thing. So she kind of updated those. And as far as the quantities, how they match out, I will defer to Mr. Maturino and Tracy on that, because I honestly don't know the answer to that. But I know it's not any less than what was proposed.
Yeah, it's
definitely more.
Yeah, it's roughly the same, or maybe
Yeah.
a tree or 2 more than what was on the original.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Tatiana. All right, open to the commission. And again, you have to speak up because I can't see all of you.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rich.
Thank you. Just a quick question. There was a mention of the drains. Do we know if there's any footing drains there or other drains or pipes that have been buried or abandoned?
In the site to get all together, or just in the area of the wetlands?
Just in that area of the wetlands. I'm just curious if there's going to be any piping that's not connected.
Not that we're aware of. I mean, there's potential that there could have been something from the old residents that could be down in there. There was a previous house here, but nothing, since the new construction, unless the applicant knows of something that I don't, but nothing that we're aware of.
I don't know of anything. There was a septic system just sort of above the wetlands area. That's been all removed.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, David.
I think the commission would benefit from seeing the original application materials. There's some concern on my part specifically of additional clearing that looks to have been done along the stream corridor and removal of trees and stuff. And really see, okay, what was there before? what was approved before, and then, what are we looking at now? There was a concern when this application went through that this was the sort of thing that we would be finding in 3 to 5 years. And lo and behold, that's what's happened. So if we can pull out the original application and the original application, the survey, existing tree locations, etc., I think the commission would benefit from revisiting what we were presented with, what was approved, and what ultimately happened on the site. And now we're coming in looking for forgiveness rather than, sticking with what was an approved plan.
I'd be happy to provide anything my office has. Before I was, my firm acquired Spath Yorkville, merged with them a couple of years back. This was done before I was involved, but I should have all the records. So if the town doesn't have something, I'm happy to provide it.
Okay.
Jason,
Thank you.
was this David's project, Bjorkland?
Yeah, this is one of
Yes,
the.
it was.
Okay, all right.
And to my knowledge, I don't know of any other trees that were removed during the last period of time from the approval till now. So if you see something, I'd like to know myself.
Were there any trees cut down or removed here?
There was approved trees that were near the mouth of the driveway that were taken out when the driveway was put in as per the plans. Other than that, no other trees were taken down after the approval of the plan, but none except the ones I mentioned were put in.
All right.
Scrolling back through this is a website that I use, but it allows you to go through aerial photos. This is back to 2017. So you can see what this looked like when the previous home was there. There wasn't a lot of overgrowth. This was different time of year.
Can you forward back through?
Yep. This is 2016, 2017. That's when the house was demolished.
When was this originally approved?
Around 2017, I believe. I don't know the exact date.
April 2017.
So it sits for quite some time. In 2019, they started the new home.
Hold that one for a second. This one, you can clearly see the starting of pushing material towards that stream corridor in the wetland all along it. It looks like it's more cleared than it was in previous images.
One thing to keep in mind is it does depend on the leaf cover with these photos too. It's tough. There's trees still here. You can see the shadows, but yeah, it's just tough to know exactly what we're looking at there.
Go forward in time.
So there's 2021.
Is this the magic site?
This is called Nearmap.
Okay.
It's a subscription service that I use. It's very useful.
Nice.
Now,
Yeah, and here you can see clearly along the edge of that stream corridor where it was straightened out, and it looks like there's boulders and stuff placed along through there. Right in there, yeah.
Yeah, there's some boulders placed there, but there wasn't trees removed back there.
Oh, I'm just saying that's work that was done within the wetlands boundary that was
and that's why
not
I'm
approved.
here to try to
Yeah. Oh, it's a great site. I like those photos. That's really very useful for.
Yeah, it's helpful. Sure. Yeah.
What was the original driveway made of?
I believe that was asphalt too, right, Larry?
Yes, it was asphalt.
It still is.
Right.
Now, are you the buyer of this property or are you the developer of this property?
I'm the owner. I bought the property for myself.
And did you develop the house, build the house, or did someone else build it?
I had a friend of mine who was the general on it, and I did some of the general work too. I ended up having to let him go. And that was the house was drawn by Barry Unger. the architect, from Monroe.
Mhm. Okay.
Just a question. How does the neighbor get into their space? Because I see it's obviously an easement that allowed you to come in.
There's-
Oh, okay.
He
Now
has
you're
a driveway
okay.
as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
separate driveway there.
They kind of come together at the street and then they split.
All right. At this point, other commissioners, I'm going to go by name because I can't see everyone. John, do you have any questions?
I'll wait until we do the walk, then I'm sure I'll have some questions.
Okay, Greg? Nothing. Okay, Bob, any
No comment
questions?
this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we've done David, done Rich. All right,
Walk.
John, do me a favor and give them the parameters of what you'd like to see for our walk. I've already asked that the wetlands be flagged. Anything else that you can think of?
Talking to me, I guess, I'm John. Yeah, if we can replace the wetland flags, with stakes in those areas, so that's where the wetlands were. I can't think of anything else that we would need. I don't know if any of the other commissioners have other ideas. That would be enough.
Through the chair,
Go ahead, Carmine.
I'm thinking of possibly asking for the trees that have been added to be flagged so that we know which ones were original and which ones were new.
All
Sure.
right.
I'd have to rely on the owner to do that, but I can.
Yeah, I'll be glad to do that.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Rich.
Carmine or John, the location of the septic tank that had been removed, do you want to see where that is? Or you just want to find that on the maps?
Why would we want to know? Go on. I assume that the house has been hooked up to sewer, right?
Correct, yes.
So I don't know why we would need that. In fact, I'm sure that some of that area is now being watered.
I'm not even sure we know exactly where it was. I think that was a
Okay.
situation where they found it during construction.
Probably would be a good area for it, but I don't know.
Through the chair, Mr. Edward, would it be possible to do a pre and post contour study of the back of the house? You know, what was there in when this thing was originally approved versus what's there now?
Sure, you wanted to see a comparison of the elevations, basically?
Yeah, you could show maybe the contours from back then in a different color, just so we could see, you know, what was there originally and what is there now, to see the effects of, you know, the construction operation.
Sure, we can come up with something, maybe do some cross sections or something too for you, so you can see what it looks like.
Okay.
On that point, David, when he had the site on the screen, I noticed it stopped at 278 when you went through. So we don't know how much it sloped or anything. So I actually like to see what the actual is all the way down to the lake, if you would.
So you wanted to see the elevations beyond what we
You come
showed?
up, you've got 376, and then the rest of it I didn't see coming down here. It's just, okay, now I can because you've enlarged it.
Yeah,
Sorry about
I
that.
zoomed down a little bit. Sorry, I didn't go all the way.
All
up.
right. Fade it out on me.
Yeah, trying
All
to
right.
take one out by you. Yeah, so it goes down to around 364 here, I guess, is the low point. I imagine the water elevation fluctuates to some degree. And we can take that farther if that's something you want to see. We'd be happy to do that. If there is anywhere farther to go.
All right, let me ask the commission, Mr. Edwards had mentioned about a public hearing. Do you see a reason for this?
Through the chair.
It's not a significant impact. We don't have a petition. The other thing is public good. Go ahead, David.
I mean, it is a violation. You know, in that case, I think it might warrant a public hearing, but beyond that, no.
Let me put my legal eagle on the spot here. Attorney Cordone.
Great. So Commissioner, you summarized the three scenarios within which you would have a public hearing, and unless one of those three, you cannot have a public hearing. So it either needs to be that you determine there's a significant impact.
It isn't.
Or a likely significant impact, a potential for a petition, which could still come, of course, and or that's in the public interest. So if it's because of a violation, I think you need to make a determination, not that it's a violation, but that it's in the public interest to proceed with a public hearing. I don't know, was there a public hearing with the prior approval? Do we know that?
I don't know.
Tatiana, did we have one? I'm trying to remember back in 2017 on this one.
I don't believe so, but we can verify.
To the chair,
Go ahead, John.
let's say we don't schedule a public hearing, go out on a walk, we come back next month and we find out it was a significant impact. And at that time, could we then ask for public input, or we have to start the meeting as a public hearing? Maybe that's a question for Attorney Cordone.
Yes, I believe we have to take a look at the time requirements, and perhaps the applicant could consent to any additional time that may be required. But in your next meeting, which you don't meet in August, it would be in July, in September.
Yeah, that would be the one thing.
You would then vote to have a public hearing, and the hearing would be at the next meeting. So you could determine you still need a public hearing for the reasons you just stated.
Okay.
But that determination would be made in the September meeting. Then your hearing would be either in October or some other date you would choose to set.
Okay.
And I think we may need a consent from the applicant to go that far out if we were to do that, just because we're not meeting in August.
We'd have to go and see. Right now, I get the feeling that this is a significant impact, but after our walk,
Through the chair, to play devil's advocate here, it's several hundred square feet of wetlands that were filled. Now we're looking at removing the fill and doing a significant amount of planting to restore the wetlands. I think it would qualify as a significant activity, considering some of the other applications that we've heard recently that are, you know, about the same, in the same vein.
what would the public's input, you know, if we find out that it's significant, we know how to mitigate it. Would having the public also comment on it bring us any new knowledge of what to do, or handle it?
I just think it's a matter of treating it, you know, filling of wetlands is a significant
I'm not
activity.
disagreeing with you, David. It's like I'm walking the line on this myself.
Yeah, it's a discussion. I think it qualifies, given that, you know, we're talking about filled wetlands, a significant amount of work within the wetlands to restore the wetlands and plantings. I think it raises to the level of a significant activity.
Okay. So maybe the chairman would like to bring it to a vote on members.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Let's
Okay,
do
and then we'll
a
have it, you
quick-
know, like I said, I'm 50-50 on it right now myself.
All right, we'll do a quick straw vote. What are your thoughts, Bob? Are you for a public hearing?
Whatever the commission agrees with. Richard.
John?
Sorry, it's kind of on mute. I'm not for a public hearing right now unless we find something more significant.
Okay, Greg?
I don't see the need for it if we're going to clean it up. I guess the question is there a way to, how does this get documented or communicated? to neighbors. Is that really the issue? There was a problem. It came to us. There's a remediation plan, new plantings, it's being corrected. I don't know how you communicate that. That's the advantage of the public hearing. You get the communication out there.
Well, the one thing I've seen being on the commission for a long time, best sets of eyes, I think, live on the lakes. They, the neighbors are very aware of what's happening. So I think if there's an awareness there, they want to do a petition or come forth.
The only advantage scheduling a public hearing is with August being a shutdown, you schedule for September, you can get this thing a little more efficiently, get it cleaned up, get it done. Otherwise, I could see it backing into October, November easily.
All right, David, we know you're for it. Carmine?
To try to expedite, because we're off in August, I believe we should move forward with the public hearing.
It should or shouldn't?
It should.
Okay. Rich?
Mr. Chairman, will having the public hearing automatically expedite this process?
No, basically what it will do is make the neighbors aware of what's happening. I don't think the expediency factor goes either way. So.
Well, if it costs nothing to alert the neighbors and doesn't spend any additional time, then that should be done. But if it's a process that's quick, the problem with August being off, as Mr. Cernica said, it creates an obstacle to. There's a remediation here that's trying to be completed. We know what needs to be done. They know what needs to be done. I guess the question is that remediation going to cause any undue effects on the neighbors? I would assume that this is improving the property.
Right now, nothing can be done until we, give them the perimeter, see what's done. So August is a lost month, no matter what, whether it's a public hearing or not. So are you a yes or a no?
Can we create a special meeting?
No, it's going to be a regular meeting, but it'll be open to the public.
Okay, I want to go with whatever is quickest for the applicant. And
okay, so that's 4 yeas and 3 nays. So it looks like we'll be doing a public hearing then. So,
Mr.
Attorney
Chairman,
Cordone, do we need a official motion?
yeah, I think you need to have an official motion that it's either you're conducting a public hearing in the public interest or because you believe there's a significant impact. I think either one you have discretion to.
Or it can be a combination, I think, too, right?
I think it could be also, it's yes, for both reasons.
All right, Greg, can you do a motion for me?
I'd like a motion to take application 2420, a permit approval for previously placed fill and installation of detention galleries within a regulated area at 139 Canoe Brook Road to hold a public hearing at the next Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission meeting in September due to public interest and
Significant activity.
significant impact to the wetlands.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, David was there. Okay. Going to do a verbal. I'm a yes. Bob?
Yes.
John? Yes.
Yes.
Gregory?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Carmine?
Yes.
And Rich?
yes,
Okay, so that's unanimous. All right, let's go back to, is there anything else that you wanted to point out, Mr. Edwards or Mr. Dancer?
I guess the only question I have is, do you have a date for the site walk in mind, or is that something you'll contact us with?
Yeah, we will give you a definite time. It's usually on a Monday or Tuesday and usually around 3. I just have to check because of the summer vacations and things to make sure we've got,
That's what I need to know, that same thing.
you would be notified.
Yep.
And we'll also give you what we're looking for. Mainly, the main thing we're looking for is the wetlands to be reflagged and numbered.
Okay.
And if you can also get us the information that was requested by David for our beforehand, so we can view it over the vacation.
Yeah, I'll work with Tatiana to get everything to you guys.
Okay. Tatiana, have I missed anything? Anything you wish?
I think we're good for now. Thank you.
All right. Is there
Through the
anything else
chair,
from?
through
Go
the-
ahead, Greg.
And Carmine wanted any new trees marked. New plantings.
Yeah, I have a list of everything that you guys asked for here, so I'll
Okay.
go through that and try to make sure we get everything.
All right, so we're good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. In that case, I need a motion to close new business.
So moved.
Moved by Rich and seconded by
Second.
Bob Ferrigno. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Unanimous. All right. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to the public hearing for application 24-06. I'm
Through the
going to
chair.
ask Carmine to read the notice of public hearing.
Through the chair.
Oh, go ahead, Rich, and you're going to be signing off.
Yeah, on the advice of council, since I joined the commission, or rejoined for the 6th time after this application began, I won't be taking part. Have a good night.
Good night. Take care. Thank you.
good night.
All right.
Proceed.
Wait, go ahead, Carmine.
Okay, notice is hereby given that the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission of the Town of Trumbull will continue to hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. via video conference. Application 24-06, David Arndt. Permit approval to construct a single-family residence within a regulated area at Lot 4 West Misha Road. A copy of the applications and maps are on file in the town engineer's office, town hall, and on the Town of Trumbull website. Public comment can be sent via email to clombardo@trumbull-ct.gov, which must be received 24 hours in advance of the meeting, or public comment can be made via phone or video conference connection at the public hearing. Dated at Trumbull, Connecticut, this 13th day of June, 2024. Richard H. Gerard, Senior Chairman, Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission of the Town of Trumbull.
Thank you, Carmine. I see Attorney Hollister is here. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, commission members, town staff. Tim Hollister representing the applicant David Arendt, who is online. With me as the development team are David Bjorkland and Jason Edwards from J. Edwards Associates and Bill Kinney. This is the 6th time that we have been before you on this application. We are hopeful to close the hearing tonight. To that end, we did file what I've been calling them final supplemental materials now for several months, but supplemental materials were submitted June 24th, and full-size plans were delivered to the town office on the Thursday, the 27th. We received comments from Land Tech late Thursday afternoon. Last week, we e-filed a response to all the questions this afternoon. I believe Mr. Ryder was given a copy electronically, and we can talk about, I assume you would want us to reply after Mr. Ryder makes his presentation. We have 3 slides, which I'll show you by screen shares as we go along, but I do want to note for staff that each of the slides I'm going to show you is already part of the June 24th submission. So what I'd like to do, take a couple minutes with help from my team and go through the key points of our June 24th submission. And let me start with the conservation easement. And if I could share my screen. Let's see. share. You all see that?
Not yet.
Not yet. There we go. Okay, you can see that now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is a map of the conservation easement. It was accompanied in the application materials by a draft of a conservation easement taken from the template that is in your regulations. This area is 1.1 acres, and a couple things I'll point out. As we discussed last time, this is the lot line between lots 4 and 5, so this spans both lot 4 and lot 5. This line, and this line follow the property line, and then the balance follows the wetland line, so it should not be hard to describe. I shared the draft easement text with Attorney Cordone, and he can obviously speak for himself, but his comment was that it should be understood that the easement should be approved by the town attorney, and we certainly agree with that. The other thing I would point out is that the gas line easement is already an easement. It's encumbered. We can't do anything to overlay that, and that's right here. So that's another reason that this is I guess it'd be the eastern boundary of the conservation easement. But it is 1.1 acres. This is an area that I hope the neighbors would appreciate. It now barred from further development. The next item I want to run by you is the Caltech, that's the stormwater system, the brand name of the stormwater system, maintenance approval condition. And the text of that is in our tab 1 memo from June 24th, but I'll just read the proposed condition aloud. And I did also share this with Attorney Cordone. And it says, the permit holder shall comply with the periodic maintenance requirements for the Caltech recharger stormwater system and shall file a report with the Wetlands Commission staff within 30 days of completion of each requirement. This list of requirements shall also be recorded on the Trumbull land records as a notice pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, section 47-12A, to all future owners, unquote. And as I explained to Attorney Cordone, which I think he probably already understood, 47-12A is the standard way you record something on the land records to create notice to any future owner of an obligation that comes with the land. So I think that that condition fulfills the discussion we had last time of making sure that the Caltech stormwater system will be properly maintained going forward. The next item we want to respond to is there was a back and forth with the town staff about a possible seep. And I'm going to ask Mr. Edwards and Mr. Bjorklund and Bill Kenny if they would comment on our analysis of the possible seep. So gentlemen, you want to take it away, please?
This is Jason Edwards, J. Edwards Associates, Engineers and Surveyors, 227 Stepney Road in Easton. We went out again. Nick Clark from my office, the professional engineer, went out, inspected the site, did not see any evidence of seeps in the area of the detention system. He looked thoroughly, didn't see anything. At this point, we don't see the seeps being there, first of all, or having any impact on the detention system. The depth of groundwater there, we have 2 test holes in the system already. Doing anything more would basically be excavating the entire system. But we had a depth of groundwater, I believe, at 22 inches in our soil log. I'll have to verify that, but I think it's around 22 inches. And the bottom of our detention system, sorry, mouse is playing games with me here. I'm just going to share my screen if that's okay. Everybody see that okay? This is the plan set that was submitted previously. So we have our detention system here. We have a test hole 5 and test hole 12 are right in the center of the system. We had encountered groundwater, I believe, or evidence of groundwater at redox, which would be evidence of a high groundwater table at 22 inches and at 56 inches, respectively, at different times, one in 2021, one in 2022. The actual cross section of the system, which I just saw here somewhere. So we are above that redox layer with our design. The redox layer is drawn in red here. We have a separation to that redox with the bottom of our system. And we are also proposing a select fill package downstream. In my opinion, the redox or the groundwater will not impact the function of this system. I think Bill Kenny also was going to speak on this as well. He's on. You there, Bill?
Yes, I am. Good evening, Bill Kenny, Principal William Kenny Associates in Fairfield, professional wetland scientist, soil scientist, and landscape architect. I'd just like to say that, a seep is an area where you have groundwater discharge, which is a common function of a wetland. So we'd expect that groundwater discharges along the edge of the wetland. So it doesn't surprise me that somebody would use the word seep to say they saw water flowing out there. And that's the type of thing that's a seasonal occurrence in many wetlands. In the spring or winter, you're getting groundwater discharging. So I agree with what Jason described, that at the wetland edge, the water table is high, but as you move away from the wetland, the water table is deeper. They did their test holes to identify where that is, and observed and documented that information, and then to design their system to be above it so that it's not affecting that groundwater movement, and that groundwater is not affecting how that system functions. Please answer any questions you might have.
And now I have a comment for Mr. Edwards. Attorney Hollister said that David Bjorkman would be joining. I don't see him. Is he coming on, or is he here?
He is supposed to be on. I think he's having some technical difficulties, so hopefully he will be on.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to clarify for the record.
Thank you.
Right,
Mr. Jason Edwards, do you want to show those two cross sections that were your part of your engineering response?
Yeah, let me just. There was a request for a cross section of the home, of the proposed home going the. I just need to see the section line would run sort of the long way of the house, I guess you could say. It's a longitudinal section of the home. We had provided one going the short direction, and the town staff had requested that we provide one the long way. So this is a section of the long direction. This is in our response that we provided a couple weeks back, I guess. So we show here the West Beecher Road on the left, the garage slab, the existing grade follows down below here. We have range, because the watercourse or intermittent watercourse is flowing down under the house. The height of that, the clearance goes from about 5.5 feet on the high side down to about 9.8 feet on the low side. So there's significant room beneath that structure for daylight to get in particular around the 9.8 height. We do span the wetland soil here. We show the steps coming down, and then the grade in the rear. Any questions on this? I'd be happy to try to answer them. Yeah, that was the new section we provided.
Okay, thank you. Bill Kenny, let me go back to you. There was discussion last time about vegetation, erosion control, and you had some additional thoughts on that, if you would.
Right. Thank you. Yep. And I look back at my impact assessment report from the beginning of this process from February 20th, and I discuss this in the report as well. And I provided photos at the last hearing to show you that a couple of things. One is that this wetland area below the building that's going to be suspended above the wetland has a extremely stony surface. When built into the title of the wetland type, the words extremely stony are in there. And so both the channel of the watercourse and the wetlands either side of it have a significant amount of boulders and cobble-sized stone on the surface that are helping to stabilize that surface. And there's plant material there. So with the proposal will affect certainly any trees in the footprint of the building will be cut. The root system will remain. That root system will provide, in the short term, provide some stabilization until those roots die over time. But I want to point out that there's a significant amount of trees will remain on either side of the house. And if you think about a narrow road or a driveway through the forest, if the canopy extends over the top of that. So, and when you remove trees from a forest, it's a common forest practice where you remove a tree in the middle of two other trees to give those trees room to grow, and their canopy closes in over time. So we expect the canopy, the branches above ground to extend over the house, and we expect the roots to do the same thing. Because again, it's my opinion that the groundwater that's moving through this wetland and the surface water that's moving through it is primarily coming from off-site. And there's some contribution from rain, but it's mostly the water that's coming down from that watershed of the hundreds of feet of roadway and those 12 or so residential properties that contribute to this. So all that water's coming down, it's flowing under the house, both the surface water and subsurface. And the roots of the trees that are nearby are going to expand under the building to seek out that water. And as the roots of the trees that are cut die off, they're providing an opportunity for those roots from the adjacent trees to fill in. And you think about like a tree planting pit on an urban street that might be 5 by 5, and the trees are planted in there and their roots go out, and they're restricted when there's pavement immediately over them, but they still go off to the side. But this won't have that restriction at all. The building's going to be 5 to 10 feet or so off the suspended above the soil surface, and the water will be moving through that soil. So I am confident that the root systems from the trees on either side will flow under and help to continue to stabilize the soil. So we're going to stabilize the soil with the existing stone, with additional plantings that we're doing, and with root systems of adjacent trees. And we'll supplement. Also, it's identified on the drawing that we prepared, habitat enhancement plan. We do have a note on there where we'll monitor conditions in the first 3 years and supplement with fieldstone if by chance there were to be an erosion issue. But it's my opinion that if this area was going to have significant erosion, we would have seen it even already in its existing condition. But there's a significant amount of stone there helping to protect it.
Thank you, Bill. Next thing we'd like to cover is Mr. Sullivan from the Southwest Conservation District said last time, and I will say caught us somewhat off guard. He suggested that the DEP March 24 Stormwater Manual had, by its terms, does not apply to site plans filed before the March 31 effective date. But he said that if construction is not started by October 1st of 2024, then you revert to having to comply with the manual. And That was quite a shock. He explained that he had got that from a call with staff at DEP. I tried several times to call DEP, the stormwater section. I did not. I sent an email. I did not get any return communication. But what I want to point out, and we said this in our June 24 submission. First of all, the manual is not a regulation. It would be utter chaos statewide if every application that has been considered by a Wetlands Commission since March or the end of March of this year till now would have to revert to a different set of standards starting October 1st, simply based on construction not starting. And I pointed out that the state wetlands law statute expressly grandfathers any application, wetlands application that is filed against any later regulation changes. But this isn't even a regulation. So with all due respect, we disagree with the assertion that the standards will change on October 1st, and we'll continue with this plan that we have. Next and last item on our sort of preliminary agenda is alternatives. It has been our consistent position that all primary wetland and watercourse functions are being preserved, and therefore we have already met the no feasible and prudent alternative requirement of the wetland statutes and the regulations. Nonetheless, I believe it was Commissioner Voresky who asked for some additional plans to be shown and discussed. And I'll share my screen. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm doing it in the wrong order. I'm sorry. There you go. Okay, so this is the 2024 plan, excuse me, the 2022 plan that was rejected, and you could see that this involves a driveway that goes across the watercourse. So this involved wetland filling and watercourse piping, and it has an adverse impact on functions of wetlands. So this was a plan that was rejected in 2022, and therefore not before us today. Now let me see if I can. How do I get this? How do I go to the next slide? No, not that way. All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how to get, all right. There we go. Can you see that?
Nope.
See that now? You can
Now
see
we
it.
can.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is there was discussion about whether we could have a viable development staying just within the northern upland review area. Again, this is not wetlands. This is just the upland review area. A couple of considerations. First, the applicant has already applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a front yard variance of 7 to 8 feet off the street line with a 31-foot building width. So we are committed to that. We cannot change that. We can't shrink it. We can't increase it. We certainly can't increase it. What's shown here in yellow is a rectangle that is 31 by 22. That's 692 square feet. This does not comply with the minimum floor area zoning regulations of the town of Trumbull. So this is not a feasible and prudent alternative because it's not a legal alternative. If you were to extend the structure to the south to comply with the minimum floor area regulations, you would be within the wetlands, which is why that is not a feasible and prudent alternative. And if you were to turn it sideways, the same reason. And by the way, this floor area being only 692 square feet would not allow for a garage. And I think we had a discussion maybe 2 meetings ago about how not having a garage, not having a place to store maintenance equipment and so forth is a detriment to the maintenance of the property. So we can't expand it, we can't shrink it. And the other item about putting the house in this location is you see the driveway entrance to just to the northeast here, to the upper right. If there were structure right here, there would be a sightline obstruction when you were trying to leave the property, because you would not, from here in the driveway, you would not be able to see what was going on Westminster Road. That's probably a minor inconvenience, but it is still another detriment as to why we could not do that. So we looked at this. We cannot expand in this direction because to comply, that we'd have to do that to comply with the zoning regulations. But if you had a minimum of 31 by, I believe, 32 feet, you would be 10 to 12 feet into the wetlands area. So that is, in our view, not a prudent alternative. So those are the points, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that we wanted to cover tonight. The only thing we have left is our responses to Land Tech's comments, but I assume you would want Mr. Ryder to have the courtesy at least of making his presentation before we respond. So I would reserve that at the moment and yield the floor.
Go ahead, Mr. Edwards. I see your hand up.
Just Dave Bjorklund is on the meeting. I think he needs to be made a panelist, possibly. He texted me.
I will try again. He declined the first time, but I'll send it again.
Okay. Thank you. That was all.
All right. At this point, we'll go to Mr. Ryder from Land Tech. If you can identify yourself, sir.
Good evening. My name is Tom.
Excuse me. For the record, I see David Bjorklund has joined the meeting. Go ahead, Mr. Ryder.
Good evening again. My name is Tom Ryder. I'm a senior ecologist, wetland scientist with Land Tech. I was retained by, Land Tech was retained by the town to conduct a peer review of this application. We visited the site on, sorry, I don't have that quite. Yeah, June 21st, and we prepared a set of comments, which I will go through tonight. The first couple comments isn't really a big deal. It's kind of housekeeping, such as the site plan. So I had requested, flag numbers. So typically on a site plan, you'll see flag numbers on the plans. And the reason for that is that it's useful is because when you're out in the field, it's useful to orient yourself. They're good landmarks. However, this site has been flagged 3 times. It's well documented, and this is the 6th hearing of apparently from what Mr. Hollister had said earlier. Anybody who's been to the site has probably already been to the site, and that's probably not needed anymore. So it was basically just a standard comment that I've made when I see that. So we can kind of ignore that one. That's not really that applicable to this portion of the process. I'd also ask for a site plans full size. This is just a housekeeping thing. We don't need to get into it tonight. The ones I had were 8.5 by 11. They were provided to the town on the same day I prepared the reports. It doesn't really matter. I've received them since, and I was able to get some information from the 8.5 by 11s. The reason I asked for it was because they provided a more detailed ones, 8.5 by 11s that I had. When you zoom in, a lot of the text was not available. Again, we don't need to get into that too much. So that's more of a housekeeping thing, as I mentioned earlier. Similar with the architectural plans, I only asked them because normally architectural plans don't really apply to inland wetlands. I mentioned that in the comments. Here I had asked for them just because the house was directly over top, and there might be some additional detail on the architectural plans that I was unaware of, or that the commission may be unaware of, that would be useful for the decision process. And again, I'm not here to oppose or to approve or anything along those lines for these. I'm here to provide a independent review and to provide the commission with things that we think are important that maybe haven't been addressed, or maybe something that we disagree with, so that the commission has multiple views and can assess it, and to make sure that the commission has all of the information they need in order to make an educated decision at the end. I made a comment about the in my report under wetland impact assessment #1, that the proposed house would have a first floor elevation of 203, elevation 203, and the elevation of the wetlands would be around 194, 196, indicating that there would be about a 6 to 8 foot gap. I guess it would be 9-foot gap in between there. And then the house would then permanently shade the wetland, causing physical impacts to the wetland in the form of temperature changes, plant composition, and wetland chemistry. And all of those are physical changes. And when you alter a wetland in a physical manner, you are creating a direct wetland impact. So I put that out there for the commission to understand that it is my professional opinion that this is going to be a direct wetland impact to the wetlands for those reasons. I guess I won't get it. I have the responses, but I guess what I'll do is I'll provide my comments, and then the applicants can provide their responses, and then we can discuss that at that point. I'd also asked for what the area of the house was. It was kind of unclear to me. I didn't have the full history of it. There was some information on the applications that I was able to glean from, but I didn't have the actual square footage of the footprint that was going over the wetland. So that came through as the comments here. It was 600 square feet. So I thank the applicant for providing that. The significant impact comment was because the significant impact in the Trumbull Inland Wetlands regulations states that a significant impact is any activity that substantially diminishes the natural capacity of an inland wetland or watercourse to support aquatic, plant, or animal life, and a variety of other resources. And based on that, I believe this proposal reduces the area of the wetland capable of supporting plants, and therefore it was a significant impact. Item number 4 under the definition also states that it's a significant activity is one that's likely to cause the potential to cause substantial turbidity, siltation, or sedimentation. We just heard from Bill Kenny that that he does not believe that there's going to be any turbidity. I think there may be some. I think when the vegetation is lost, I think the root zone is going to decrease. I think there will be some. It's very likely, in my opinion, that there will be some based on the slopes and the water course. And for those 2 reasons, it's my opinion that this would be a significant impact to the wetland, and should be categorized as such. There's a statement in there that's wetland impact assessment states that the placement of the design ensures that the project can be completed with no long-term impacts to wetlands or watercourses. And I just mentioned that this was misleading. Yes, the area under the house will remain a wetland. So the area of the wetland will not change. That's correct. The area of the wetland and the watercourse will not change. But again, I'm of the opinion that the wetland functions within that area that will be shaded, and within the area of the development will be either lost or altered by the proposed activity. And I just wanted that to be clarified. Compensation. Typically, when you do impact a wetland or cause alteration to a wetland, there is some type of compensation. In this case, the applicant has provided some enhancements elsewhere on the property, but in this particular case, it's my opinion that there should be some wetland creation. Wetland creation, there is opportunity on the site to do so. If you're impacting a certain portion of the wetland, then typically it's like 3-to-1 compensation. That varies depending on the functions and values of the wetland that's being altered. But I was looking for, and maybe the commission, I put this out there for the commission to consider, is that, you know, some type of compensation in wetland creation might be valid here. There's ways to expand the existing wetland, maybe southward in the upland area. There's ways to create better functioning along those buffers, and not just put in some plants and enhance the existing functions. The wetland assessment states that the primary wetland and watercourse functions will be substantially maintained or slightly improved. Yes, portions of the wetland will still be able to perform these functions, but there again still is a direct physical wetland impact within the area of the footprints. I don't need to get into back of that because that's kind of a similar comment that I made earlier. So we'll get in. Sorry, let me just. The wetland impact assessment states a couple times that the development design reduces wetland and watercourse impact to the greatest extent possible. And that's where we get into alternatives again. I know that Mr. Hollister had just provided some alternatives, but I think there are some other ones that really need to be looked at, such as if the house is just shifted southeast and you have this area, that upland area southeast of where the house currently is. Maybe that can be looked at a little bit better. And then maybe you bridge the wetland from where the current house is located. That would really reduce the shading and the direct coverage over the wetland, and would be able to utilize that upland area. Also, the property to the east of that of this property is already developed, indicating that you can kind of keep all the development together, and then you can provide a contiguous wetland system on the west as part of your conservation easement. So by moving the house to the southeast a bit, I don't know, I didn't see that as an alternative being proposed. Another alternative to propose maybe is encroaching slightly into the wetland. I know that they have rejected the wetland before because of wetland filling, but there is a certain logic to if you encroach into a portion of the wetland that is not very well functioning, and decrease that area of that wetland there, and then creates a much better functioning system on elsewhere on the property that is of 2 or 3 times the area, you are actually creating a more functioning wetland system in the end, while still able to develop the site in a reasonable way. So I throw that out for the commission as well for consideration. Well, and for the applicant for consideration as well. The shade tolerant species. I know Bill had just mentioned that he's putting in some shade tolerant species, and we looked at these species, and I was out there in the field, and there still is, I was out there in the morning, and there was solar penetration. There was light penetrating the soil. It was not a shaded area. And this was in full leaf out conditions in the end of June. So there is light out there now, and the house going on top of that is going to reduce that light. So I think there still is going to be wetland change through plant loss. You can plant shade tolerant species, but they still need light. And there still is going to be an area of the house that is going to be fully shaded. And that's another one of my questions is I had asked if they were proposing shade tolerant species, that it would be good to know based on the angle of the lights and the height of the house, you can do some GIS and some CAD and some modeling to determine how much light will actually penetrate to the soil and in what area. If you have 600 square feet, maybe you're down to 200 square feet, or I'm just throwing those numbers out, but there's going to be a number in there that's going to be totally shaded. And those numbers, I would imagine, can be quantified. And then I mentioned about engineering assessments. We did not review this from an engineering perspective, but there was an engineering report, and the engineering report was conducted for the drainage. So my question was there an engineering assessment that would determine if this house and the footprint of the house would actually alter the flow of the surface flow of during storm conditions? It may not, but I think that would be nice to have on the record, and it would probably be of value to the commission to understand that. I also looked into the asking some questions based on the overall ecology of the wetland, and I was asking about the wetland dependent wildlife and how would what is the impact of the wetland dependent wildlife from this project. There is a physical direct impact to this system. How would that affect the local area? Nice to have a biological response to that. And how would the exterior of the house be maintained? If you're, I guess this house had siding, that we don't have to paint it as much, but you're still going to be doing some power washing. You can be changing the roof on occasion, which gets all that the asphalt and the dust, all that in there. And I guess the take-home message here is that yes, you can probably put all the logistics involved and address that, but it's probably easier not to have the risk in the first place than to try to continually manage that risk. So if the house was elsewhere on the property and it didn't have those issues over the wetland, then you wouldn't have to worry about these particular risks. I'm just saying that that's kind of hard to enforce, overall. This current owner may be well aware after going through this whole project on the sensitivity of it all, but then maybe somebody down the road will buy the property and just start washing and soap and all that kind of stuff on there, wouldn't have the background on it. So again, those are my comments, and the comments are basically just directed again to what I felt the commission should be aware of in order to make an adequate, educated decision on this. I'm available for any questions, and otherwise yield the floor back to the applicant.
All right, before we go to Attorney Hollister, are there any questions from the commissioner or from Tatiana or John? All right, we'll go to Attorney Hollister and let him answer Land Tech's comments.
Attorney Hollister, you're muted.
I just said, I'm sorry. I thought I had just unmuted myself. Thank you. We'll do this as a team approach because I'm obviously not the technical person, but I will sort of take the lead. Respectfully, overall, we really disagree with the peer review. And there's a bunch of specifics that we want to get into, but the first thing is this is a 1.5 acre property, and we're talking about covering or putting about 600 square feet, maybe 640, somewhere in that range, under the suspended structure. That's a very small area. And the second thing, sort of overarching comment, is the regulatory standard in a wetlands application is not that something's going to change. The regulatory standard is a substantial adverse impact on a function of a wetland or watercourse. And that's a very important distinction. If I'm hearing Mr. Ryder correctly, his assertion is that there will be a change. There will be a loss of plants. No testimony about how many plants, what types of plants, when that'll happen. So we can't just have a generic, if there's any change, then that's an adverse impact, because that's not a basis for denying an application. In response to the specific first part of Mr. Ryder's comments, I made the point, again, a layperson's point, the area is currently shaded. And remember, the neighbors and I think also town staff said there is an existing tree canopy. That's why we were questioned closely about how many trees are you going to cut. So the area is already shaded, and what we're going to do is create a small area where there will be more shade. But respectfully, less shade and more shade is not something you can quantify. I think it stands to reason that underneath the structure, there will be some refracted sunlight, because I learned in physics in college that light goes around the corners and bends. So we're talking about the difference between more shaded and less shaded. And as to the area underneath, there will be some light. We have the perforated pipe providing irrigation, and we have Mr. Kenny's report about planting and maintenance as necessary. So for all those reasons, we believe that we correctly filled out the DEP reporting form and saying that there will be no adverse impact below the structure. Now, let me turn it over to Mr. Kenny at this point to fill in on that.
Thanks, Tim. And I am in agreement with what Attorney Hollister just said, and I think that testimony that I gave earlier in the meeting deals with this, and a few other items that one, whether there's what we have determined is that there will be no loss of wetland. Wetlands in Connecticut are defined by soil type. And with spanning over the surface of the wetland, there's not a loss. There is a change. And from day one, we've said that there would be a change in the vegetation. But we've identified and stated that the primary functions will remain, that this wetland on the site is this sloping system. It's primarily driven by the watercourse. To the southwest of the house is where the wetland flattens and broadens, and the watercourse sort of disperses through the wetland. We're not over that. That's to the south of us, and we're not affecting that in any way. So we've strategically positioned this at a narrow spot position that the bridged house over a narrow spot over a sloping wetland that is, its functions are primarily driven by a watercourse with water flowing from an 18-inch pipe just upstream. That watercourse doesn't exist north of West Misha Road. It starts right at that pipe. So we're going to maintain that function. There's no loss of wetland area. My understanding of your regulations and the statutes is that you first avoid loss, and then you minimize, and then you mitigate. That you don't mitigate, you don't cause loss just so you can mitigate. And we had talked about opportunities for mitigation on the property at a previous meeting. It's my professional opinion that the forest on the site is a decent forest, a lot of mature trees. It's my professional opinion that you don't want to eliminate healthy upland forest to create wetlands. So I would recommend that against that, because you have very mature trees and then you're replacing it with a new wetland, which can be done. We do it all the time. But when you start off that new wetland, you're planting obviously trees that are saplings. And then even if I'd also want to say that the conservation easement that's being proposed, I think that's a substantial mitigation measure for some of the loss in or the changes to vegetative cover that may occur beneath the house or will occur with the removal of trees. And I want to note that the Army Corps, as a regulatory agency for wetland protection, they accept conservation easements as a form of mitigation. It's one form of mitigation that they accept. If there was to be a loss in a wetland, we don't have a wetland loss. We do have a change in a wetland. So that easement's important. There's a huge exemption in the wetland regulations that allow for farming. And someone could go in there and say they wanted to run sheep on the property or something. They could clear the forest in the wetland. So by putting an easement over that, you prevent somebody from doing that, or for cutting the trees down to plant blueberries or something like that. So there is value. There's a lot of protections built into the regulations, but there are some exemptions like agricultural uses. And I've seen it on many properties of this size in Fairfield County, where property owners will do that and look to the regulations for exemptions like that as a way to expand the use of their property. But so the easement is valuable. It's good mitigation. We are also providing mitigation with control of invasive vegetation, planting of native plants as well. So that's what.
Mr. Kenny, am I right that the U.S. Army Corps does not consider bridging a wetland to be a cause of a loss of a wetland? Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Kenny just covered, I think, most of the remaining substantive points, and he discussed earlier the idea that as trees are cut, gaps in the canopy and the root zone are created, the trees will adjust their growth patterns and fill in the open areas. So if there is any direct sunlight, that would be responded to by the change in the growth pattern of the trees. Alternatives, we stand by what we said. The 2022 plan, which had the house in the southeast, requires a filling of a wetland to get there. And by definition, that makes it not a feasible and prudent alternative. Bridging a wetland is simply superior to filling a wetland. So the whole premise of this application was to not do any of the activities that this commission rejected in its 2022 denial of the application, which were filling wetlands and piping the watercourse. I think Mr. Kenny has addressed shade-tolerant species. In response to Mr. Ryder's comment number 8, saying that we need to do photometric studies and so forth, I'm just going to say this as plainly as I can. In our view, there's kind of a contradiction in these comments, in that the reviewer has said that there will be a direct impact, and yet his comment is that we need to have studies as to whether an impact will occur. Well, it can't be both. And as I said earlier, the amount of shade that is changing, it can't be quantified, and the plan does allow for refracted light in irrigation and planting and maintenance of the plantings. Let's see. Again, I just don't want to repeat what we've already said. Change in shade cannot be quantified. The intermittent watercourse is not being modified or interrupted. Let me at this point ask Mr. Bjorklund and Mr. Edwards, is there anything you want to add to what Mr. Kenny and I have already said in terms of responding to Land Tech?
I don't have anything further to add. No, I don't know.
Okay. Mr. Bjorklund, do you have anything you wanted to add? Bjorklund, are you there? Has he been promoted to panelist?
Do believe we have responded to Mr. Ryder.
Excuse me, David, you have to, you know the procedure, introduce
yeah.
yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Bjorklund's new at this, so we're trying to bring him along.
Right.
So.
Well, I know he's a rookie.
Yeah. Thank you, members of the commission. My name is David Bjorklund. I'm a registered engineer in the state of Connecticut, and I have been with this application on behalf of Mr. Ardent since the beginning, since the first application. The only thing I would like to add is that we did reply to Mr. Ryder's comment. It was, I believe it's item number 11, that does indicate that there is no impact to the watercourse or the wetland due to the home construction, that we have mitigated any increases in stormwater, and we've also added an irrigation function to the wetland to add additional water to the wetland under the house. Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right, and two final comments, and I'm now addressing number 12 and number 13 in Mr. Ryder's comments. He asks about potential impacts on wetland-dependent wildlife from this project. As we have said before, of course, the commission has no jurisdiction over wildlife per se. The wetland primary functions will be maintained, and thus any support of wildlife that is provided by that function. But a small shaded area is not going to affect wildlife. Under the proposed bridge home, there is ample room for wildlife to continue to migrate. Plenty of room, as you heard, 5 to 6 feet on one side, almost 10 feet on the other. And Mr. Kenny has pointed out to me in discussions that shaded areas sometimes provide refuge for wildlife species. So there's absolutely no reason to believe that there would be an adverse impact on wildlife or wetland-dependent wildlife. The last question comment is maintenance, routine power washing, prepping the deck, the house or the deck to be painted, and so forth. As with all activities near a wetland or watercourse, the applicant is entitled to a presumption that it will take care not to spill paint or chemicals or anything like that. But I would point out, even in the record of this hearing, recall we looked at the bridge over the watercourse at Trefoil Drive. There was no concern expressed about maintenance of that bridge over that location. Maybe a little more familiar and more recent, this commission routinely approves docks on lakes or ponds without a concern about maintenance, because the presumption is that the owner will take care when conducting any such maintenance to not spill or pollute the watercourse. And I think we should be entitled to the same conclusion. So I'm going to say that we very much disagree respectfully with Mr. Ryder's comments about there being a direct impact. He has not quantified that. He can't quantify it because all he can say is that there will be more shade than currently exists. But how one could translate that into some quantification of loss of anything is simply, I think, beyond reasonable discussion. So we stand by our presentations and our analysis. All wetlands primary functions will be maintained. There is no impact here. There's no need for alternatives. There's no basis for mitigation. And we have provided the commission with every conceivable way to conservation easement, the Caltech condition of approval to make sure that the wetlands are protected going forward. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my response to Land Tech. And thank you, Mr. Ryder, for your participation.
Mr. Ryder, did you want to rebut or add anything?
Yeah, there was a couple of things that I would like to add, and there was one comment that I didn't even address in when I was scrolling down on my monitor here. I went right over. So let me just qualify a couple of things. Maybe they don't need to be addressed from on the back end, but at least they get stated. Is that the applicant repeatedly mentions that the primary function will be maintained. But there are a lot of other wetland functions out there. They mentioned it in their assessments. I'll get into that in a minute. But the I'm not aware of anywhere in the Connecticut Inland Wetlands regulations that differentiate between primary and non-primary functions. So in my opinion, all functions need to be evaluated, not just the primary. Second thing is that the wetlands, the functions that I think they're going to be lost or altered, they admitted to that there's going to be some change to the wetland. Everybody kind of agrees with that. So we're down to what actually wetland impacts are going to be altered. In my opinion, there's going to be a nutrient removal or transformation loss or change. That's the effectiveness of the wetland to trap nutrients and the ability of the wetland to process those nutrients. I think that's going to change based on the loss of vegetation. Production export is also may change, but and sedimentation and stabilization, we vary on our opinions on that. I think there might be likely to be some stabilization issues. The applicant that disagrees with that, but regardless, there are other functions in there that the wetland is currently functioning that are performing that need to be addressed. And regarding a direct wetland impact, the applicant says that it's not, and my opinion is that there is a direct wetland impact. And if the applicant or the commission would like any second opinion, I offer them to reach out to the DEP. It's been my understanding through my 26 years in Connecticut, more time outside of Connecticut, but 26 years in Connecticut, that they would consider this a direct wetland impact. So I would offer anybody who wants to reach out to the DEP and ask them the specifics of this application and whether they believe this is a direct wetland impact or not. They would be able to provide their opinion on that. And whether for quantification, yeah, he had said I can't have it both ways. I'm saying that this is a direct wetland impact, and then I'm asking for clarification. That's true. I am saying that this is a direct wetland impact, and the question here is how much, and I'm asking them to quantify that impact. And I've kind of pointed out to how those quantifications can be made. They said they can't be made, and well, I don't think they said that. They said it's probably not reasonable under an application of this size to ask the applicant to do that, and that may be fair. But the idea here is to quantify those impacts so that we can have an educated discussion on it, and that's the reason I raised that point. So those are just some clarifications on there. Oh, and the 11th, yeah, thank you for the clarification on the stormwater from an engineer's perspective of not having an impact. That just needed to be put into the record, and thank you for doing so. I yield the floor again. Thank you.
To the chair.
I was going to ask Attorney Hollister, did you want to rebut that before I go to the commission?
Two comments. The standard is not changed. There has to be a quantification with this very small area, and the only question being, what is the impact of more shade versus what's there today? That is essentially impossible to measure. I'm not being disrespectful to Mr. Ryder when I ask. This inquiry strikes me as how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, and that's not the standard by which we evaluate. Property owners who make applications for wetland permits have rights too. There's always more studies that can be done, but when we look at that, the small area, the wetland standard, the agreement apparently that the wetland is still going to be there, the watercourse is going to be there. I think we've said everything that can be said, and I just simply do not see any basis for a denial based on Mr. Ryder's comments. Thank you.
All right, I believe, John, you had a question?
Yeah, I just had a question for Mr. Ryder. And it's about how we quantify the effect of this house. Could it be that we could consider it somewhat like way the DEP would look at a box culvert when you're crossing a stream? It seems to be very similar type of design. And perhaps there's some scientific studies on box culverts that can be applied to bridge house. That was just
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, but I understood the kind of the gist of it. That would be more of an engineering model. We did not review this for an engineering model. And I don't really know if the box culverts, when it comes to that, that's a water course. It's flowing water. Water goes through it fairly quickly. This is a more of a stationary system where you're having plants grow inside. So I don't really know if that analogy would work here. Just as my opinion.
okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Good, John? All right, I see Greg's hand up. Go ahead, Greg.
Yes, Greg Cernica for the applicant. How did you guys come up with this under the house, the bridge? How much coverage of the wetlands is involved? You guys are throwing 600 feet out there. When I look at your prints, to the west, I see 22 feet. To the east, I see 35 feet. If you average, I don't know what the average impact, I'm assuming somebody did this number, but it seems like you're taking the low end of it. My guess is the impact on this thing, the area involved is closer to 700-800 feet. How did you guys come up with 600 feet? That's what I wanted. It sounds like you're just lowballing a number. Can you give me how you quantified that number?
Yeah, Mr. Edwards, can you take that?
You follow what I'm asking?
Yeah, just give me 1 minute if you would to pull up my notes on how that was computed.
The house we know is 30 feet going across. I think you've stated that a couple times on the prints.
Yeah, that's, I believe, accurate. Sorry, my computer's just not cooperating here.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You can open it up.
So, share my screen here. This is actually my CAD file that we use to do all of our CAD work, but this is the same drawing that we provided in PDF format to the commission. So the area that we are taking is this area here as the area that is under the house.
Yeah, Mr. Edwards, just remember you have a deck on one side.
Yeah, so that deck was not included in that, so the area may be bigger if we were including the deck.
So you're removing the deck.
So this deck would add, yes, a small amount of square footage to it. So you would be an extra 250 square feet essentially there, 260. 10 by 27 would be 270. So, but the deck, I believe there's light passes through the deck if I'm not mistaken. It's going to have water passes through it. It wouldn't be an impervious surface by your calculations, so that's why I only took the area of the house itself.
Okay, yeah, we had this discussion in the last meeting. I've had a deck behind my house for 32 years. Nothing grows underneath, even though there's light coming through deck boards.
And also, another good point too is that is not all wetlands there either. There is a chunk of that.
Yeah, you have to adjust that, right?
Yeah, a little bit here. So, I mean, I can get you a number if that's what is needed.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Tatiana.
Jason, I think you have to include the deck, the covered deck on the east side as well. Seems like the limits are by the house, but portion of the deck is covered. Right there.
think the deck on both sides would need to be included there and on the other side.
Well, are we including the decks, or, I mean, that's not a, that's an impervious surface that passes water through it, or not, I mean, a pervious surface, permeable surface, so the roof area I could see, I guess if we covered that, then that would make sense. But I excluded it because it was not impervious area.
No, but it is creating shade.
Total then, if we're gonna count the decks, you get 200, 150 additional, so you'd be about 900, 950.
There's still the other deck to the southwest.
So you're just under 1,000 square feet.
What are you saying under the house is exactly?
The house, the area of the house that's under the, is this here, if you can see it. So it's the shaded area within the actual, this dark blue line. That's the house limits. This
What
is
do you
the
figure
wetland
your
limits, so-
dimensions are there?
Of the house itself?
Yeah, that's the bridge section that's covering the stream.
Here to here. That gives, that's 21 feet is the span of the house there. So it narrows there where the deck bumps in.
It would appear, let's see, 270.
I got a total of 1,100 square feet of everything combined.
So you're
How long is your 4-foot deck? The composite.
There's a piece on each side, so you have a, I mean, the areas I can tell you, the precise per this drawing is, you know, around 1,000 square feet. I wouldn't want to give a more precise number than that.
okay. And this is Greg Cernica again. So that
Hey, Greg.
15,364 square feet of wetlands, I think you've identified on this property from the application. So that's about 7%, 7.1% of wetlands we're discussing here.
I haven't done the math to verify that, but if you did the numbers, I
came off the application. Yeah, I'm assuming that's correct. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, David, any questions?
To the chair, this is David Verespi. I take exception to Mr. Hollister's exception of Mr. Ryder's comment regarding quantification of loss of plants. It's not a standard that we've had on any application, and we could certainly say that the applicant hasn't provided us the quantification of what's out there existing with a full and complete census to be able to determine what would and wouldn't be lost. So I think that is an unreasonable standard. I think we can accept that due to the shade, there will be some loss of plant material. You know, and nobody is going to be able to quantify exactly whether it's 212 plants or 2 plants or 1,050 plants, because we don't know what's out there today because that information hasn't been provided. So I think we can assume that there will be some loss of plant material within that area underneath the house. It will vary from a few plants at the edges to more plants in the middle. So I think and I don't think it's a fair comparison to compare a 5 to 6 foot wide pedestrian bridge with an open deck and narrow slats to a 21 foot wide house that's several feet off of the ground. It would be more comparable to a 2-lane road going over a stream corridor, in which case, you'd be 5 to 6 feet above the level of the water, and 21 to 24 feet wide would be a more apt comparison to what's going on here. And certainly we could go out and look at bridges around town and see what the condition of vegetation is underneath those bridges. So I do take exception to that comment, and I think we can all just assume that there'll be some loss of plant material underneath this structure due to shading. Otherwise, that's it for me for the moment. And I'll give it back to the chair.
Thank you, David. Any questions, Mr. Ferrigno, Bob?
No comment.
You good? Carmine?
If I can get back to it. In our regulations, where it talks about significant impact activity, the question came up about the maintenance of the building, and our regulation states, if I can find it, any activity which is likely to cause or has the potential to cause pollution of the wetland or watercourse. So even though we can state, or they can state, that the owner has to take precautions and everything, the potential is still there. That pollution could occur due to maintenance of the roof and the exterior of the house that's over the wetlands.
Yeah. Anything else, Carmine?
Not right now.
Okay, so going through Tatiana. John, any thoughts?
Yeah, I got a couple of things. So going back to the discussion about SIPs, Time Bond report actually is citing that SIPs were noted in the vicinity of the proposed stormwater system. So we kind of have different feedbacks from the applicant and from the previous third-party reviewer. So we kind of disagree on that point. I think additional testing would be beneficial to verify that the system would function appropriately and as designed. Then regarding the Coltec maintenance plan, I'm happy it is being proposed. However, it is not including the pervious pavers, and it's part of your stormwater system, so that should be added to the plan, and any new homeowner should be notified that they have to maintain both. The staff also asked to mark the ponding limits beyond the dam. They've been added, I see on the site plans. They are on the west side of this little bridge or kind of handmade dam. I'm not sure what to call it, but it looks like a little stream, and the limits very much differ from what I have observed in the field, because I saw kind of large pond area. So I think the commission might benefit from the actual water limits. It's very inaccurate from what I've seen, and I just wanted to note that for everyone. Let's see what else. We have requested the revisions to the stormwater report, and there were some questions. I'm not gonna go much into detail, but I will highlight the drainage area maps that are provided as stormwater calculations show well, first of all, we've asked that lot 5 is shown, and the limits of lot 5 previously approved development is shown, but it is not accounted for. So the condition is labeled as woods for the lot 5 development. So I think that should be corrected. Further, in the same drainage area map, the limits of disturbance vary greatly from the limits of the proposed lawn and the proposed shrub condition. So there is a big discrepancy. Basically, you're showing that the limits of disturbance are very close to the house, but the other maps show that it will be turned into lawn and a brush condition. So that should be clarified. Then we did ask a question, and that was a discussion about a long-term stabilization. That was also one of our comments, I believe number 41. So your response included that in order to stabilize the disturbed wetlands under the development and for the purpose of the construction, a field stone might be added of 1 foot depth maximum. So has that disturbance been added to the calculation of the permanent disturbance of the wetlands? Because you're also using a construction access outside of the house and kind of excavating a foot deep and just adding a rock. I don't know. There were a lot of questions, I think, with stabilization and concerns with erosion, long-term erosion, if plant life cannot survive. So I also wanted to mention the Southwest Conservation memo that was submitted on June 26, 2024. It should be part of everyone's packages. Hopefully the commissioners had an opportunity to see that. I simply wanted to state that we have received it. We don't have representatives from Southwest Conservation District here, but they have analyzed also the loss of vegetation in the wetlands and categorized that as a long-term impact that will decrease the wetlands function. So that's a few page document that everyone should have. And I think these are the highlights for now. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. Attorney Hollister, was there a response that was sent in for Land Tech's 3-page letter?
Yes, it was sent in this afternoon.
Okay, because
Mr. Ryder had it for sure.
okay, yes, unfortunately, none of the commissioners got it in time for the meeting, so that's something that we'll go through, because again, I know he tried his best, but this came in, as you know, late last week, because again, he was brought into the project late. So, all right, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah,
I see
just
your
to
hand
follow
up.
up on, just to follow up on Bob Perigno, just to follow up on Tatiana's, it's on the 8, the stabilization. Could the applicant review that again? You mentioned some of the stone, et cetera. Can you review what your proposal is for stabilization? That's in number 8.
Bill Kenny and Jason, can you take that?
Sure. Bill Kenny. So we are proposing, and we have a note on our drawing, and the last version of our drawing dated May 30th. And we do have a wetland and buffer enhancement plan specifications as a set of notes on the right-hand side of the drawing. And there is, at the bottom of that set of notes, we have a sequence of activities. And for 3 years, we agree or propose, both agree and propose, to monitor the situation, the soil conditions under the bridged home, and to, if we identify that there is soil erosion that is above what you, above what you would expect, what occurs upstream, immediately upstream and immediately downstream, we would use the upstream and downstream conditions as a gauge, as a benchmark. Then we would propose to place fieldstone in those areas to protect those areas, and also install vegetation. And I just want to, I want to just say that wetlands in Connecticut, the mapping of wetlands, as you know, is by soils. And when you map soils, you consider the soil surface, not if there's stone on top of it, which is very common in many of these wetlands and common in this wetland. You have fieldstone sitting on the surface. You don't consider that to be, it's something on the surface. You measure from below that stone down. So by placing some fieldstone on the surface to provide protection, it doesn't affect how you map that wetland. That area is still a wetland, and we're replicating a naturally occurring condition that you find in wetlands like this. So it's my opinion that that we're providing a benefit rather than an adversity. And so that's the thought behind the proposal to add stone if erosion is observed. And we'd use upstream and downstream as a guide, and then we'd place stone to match existing conditions where there's already stone.
Well, it seems like your approach is more reactive than proactive. You're waiting X number of years for the results to take place. I would expect a proactive versus reactive.
I think we'd be pleased to place some stone in advance if we propose that method in response to comments and concerns, but we'd be pleased to place some additional stone in advance if.
Okay. Would that satisfy you, Tatiana? And the
as long as the commission is okay with that. I actually had one other question that I failed to mention previously. The conservation easement map does call out for 10-foot pedestrian access to the wooded area in the back. Can you define what that access would be made of, and also to know that it is going over the wetland, actual wetland?
Mr. Edwards, can you take that?
Sure. Jason Edwards for the record. Yeah, we're not intending to have that be really modified at all. Just provided the homeowner wanted to have it designated that he did have a place to walk to the rear of the property if he wanted to. So it wasn't intended to be anything more than that. Now I think he has a right to cross the conservation easement as is, but it was not proposed to be a trail or anything like that. Just a way to access if you needed to.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kenny, were you proposing on the stone? Is that like a riprap? What
would be so fieldstone, the exact stone that is on the property today, and so a native stone that you find in glacial till soils like these soils are. So cobble-sized stone to maybe twice the size of a cobble. So an angular weathered stone that's pulled from glacial till soils. And you could collect this at different properties, or you can buy it. Other people collect it for a business, and you can buy it at a stone supplier.
Reason I asked that is, what was it, a day and a half ago when we got that torrential rain? You know, wouldn't some of that be carried away? That's why I'm asking. Like riprap is normally larger, so I'm trying to get educated. Is what I'm trying to do.
Right. So within the channel's already well stoned, well armored with stone. So I don't foresee the need to put stone in the channel itself. It's in the wetland that is on the flanks of the channel, where when you have a heavy storm event, once again, remember the water's coming out of an 18-inch pipe. Occasionally it might flow over the top of the road, but you get the higher velocities in the channel. And if it rises up out of the channel, it gets spread out and then the velocities drop. So I'm confident that the stone that we're talking about, this field stone, would not be dislodged from water flow.
I can make another comment.
Go ahead, John.
Wouldn't the placement of the stone interfere with the placement of the plants that we were already had on the plan? Or are they, we're talking about putting stones now where we were talking about putting plants?
It would all be integrated. We would.
Yeah, we talked about that before. How are we going to put these new plantings in between the existing stones? And now you're going to add more stones. So where's this space for the plants now? That sounds like
right.
Going...
Well, this gets back to my point about you have the soil beneath the stone. So you can, if you go out there now, you see plants growing up between the stones. So the stem of the plant, you have stone right up against the stem essentially. And so you would push the stones aside, put a plant in the ground, and then push them back and cover the ground surface with the stone. And
I for one don't think we should add anything to plans about adding more stones in the future, because there won't be anyone there to supervise such a thing. And yeah, we may end up with big ugly look the riprap instead of the field stone. And then the field stone, normally when you buy it, they're like flat stones usually, like you wanted to use for construction purposes. And those are probably the ones that are going to be picked up and moved along with a heavy flow of water in there. While the ones that are nice and round, you know, plant are probably safe. But that's my own opinion. What's going to happen? You got stones, you got two types. One's ugly, and the other one's probably going to move on. Plus, they interfere with the plants too. So I'm just not in favor of adding anything to permit future red. We'll discuss that in our work.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Go ahead, David.
This is for Bill Kenny. Given the rockiness of this boulder field, why did you choose to go with, are you going with plugs or like quart size? And you know, it says you're going with quart size. Why not go with a wetland seed mix where you could broadcast it over the area and these same species could just sort of find their way where they find their way and naturally self-select in this area?
That's another way to do it. We're pleased to cast seed and plant rooted plants. Sometimes you do both. Pleased to do that. Or if you prefer we do seed, we're pleased to do seed.
I mean, you and I both have been on job sites where you come out and the deer have come through and plucked every little quart size plug out of the ground and eaten them. I'm just.
Yep. In the short term. Yep. And I totally agree. And we do generally include notes that until the plants get well rooted, prevent the deer browse from occurring. This would be a situation where it would be easy to fence off this area for one growing season. We could lift the fence to allow smaller animals to move through, but keep the deer out of there too. But I'm open to using seed if you.
I mean, we're talking probably like a pound of seed at the most, which would be like 20 or $30.
Yeah. And maybe, I guess I was thinking to do that, you would, often that's in an area where you've clean the soil. You have a clean soil surface for one reason or
Right.
another, maybe. And so do we leave the leaf litter here, or would we, if we wanted to do seed, you might then you would want to pull back the leaf litter to get the seed and soil contact.
Well, just listening to your explanation of how this gets planted with, you're going to move the rocks, put the plant in, and,
Pull it
it's,
back.
it's certainly less work and less disruptive to leave the plants in place or leave the rocks in place and then just let the seeds sort of find their way.
Sure.
And then you put the quartz in where you can get easy access to the soil without having to create additional disturbance. Because that's the major question here is, okay, loss of vegetation, future erosion, disturbance, and here we're talking about creating a disturbance to put in plants to prevent a disturbance.
Right. I understand. And no, I think those are good points. And I would the objective is to establish the plants, and we're willing to use both methods. And whenever you do a wetland planting, as you know, we usually have a note that says the exact location, we're going to shift it one way or another to avoid, because you can't document those every minute detail of where a shrub is or where a tree is. So you shift things around. So we're willing to please to make those adjustments in the field, whether we plant a rooted plant in one location and cast seed in other areas based on the specific conditions.
Okay.
David,
I think adding
David
the seed would be good.
Yeah. I was going to say, David and Bill, educate me for a quick moment. When would you do this? Because you're building the house, you've got existing plants. As they die off, when are you trying to substitute, or would you be doing it beforehand, or
I would you're going to remove the trees, and then you're going to have that temporary access, and you could start planting in the other areas either side of that temporary access as soon as you remove those trees, and start to implement this planting so that you can benefit from more sunlight during the establishment period. And then as you, so those plants will be under the bridge portion of the building. Before
these are the so-called shade resistant plants that you feel that can grow without much sunlight?
They are, so they're ground cover plants that you find in a forest that has deep shade. And I agree with what David had said, that along the edges, you're going to have more plants survive. Interior, you'll have less plants survive. And so where less plants survive, we would place more stone. And so we'd use that 3-year period to make those adjustments. So it'll be stone or plants. But the plants that we specified are plants that you find growing in a deep, full canopy, closed canopy forest with multi-layered. You have canopy trees, understory trees, shrub layer, and then you have a ground cover. So you have that multi-layer of shrub canopy, understory canopy, and full canopy casting shade. And I agree with Tom Ryder that some sunlight gets through, but it's a very deep shade area. And so we look to the natural conditions of a heavily shaded forest to make our selections for that plant material.
All right, thank you. All right, are there any other questions, comments? I was just going to go to you, Attorney Hauser. Do you want to wrap it up?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Edwards, could you just clarify on the record, let's make sure we're apples to apples here. The square footage of the part of the house that is under an impervious surface like a roof, what is that? What is that number? So that would be excluding the decks, which are designed to be pervious both to lead and water, but if we just limit it to
Yeah,
the house.
the area, the house footprint within that's going to cover the wetlands is approximately 600 square feet, which is what I testified previously. There is a small portion of roof over the deck that's an additional 80 square feet in the front. Everything else is open deck from what I can tell, and that's the composite decking, which they actually require larger spacing between those, the installation standards for drainage and expansion. So you've got anywhere from a quarter to a half inch gap between each board, which would allow for water to pass through.
Thank you. Next thing, I don't ever mean to try to be overly legal, but I believe it was Commissioner DeFeo who read the definition of significant activity. I just want to point out, as a legal matter, the definition of significant activity is what a Wetlands Commission uses on the front end of an application to determine how much information you need and whether a public hearing is warranted. That is a different standard than denying an application, which, as I have said several times, is adverse impact on a function of a wetland or watercourse. So it's not correct to say, as long as we find it's a significant activity, that's a basis for denial. That's crossing two completely different legal concepts. And I would point out that the definition of significant activity does not appear in section 10 of your wetlands regulations, which is the considerations for an actual decision. Next thing I want to mention, I'm going to respectfully take you back to 2022. Mr. White of Ty and Bond said, and Mr. Arendt and I and Mr. Edwards, we reviewed this just a couple of days ago, the actual transcript. Mr. White said that there was a seep out there, but the system was designed above the elevation of the seep in compliance with local regulations. He did not say that there was a seep that had not been dealt with. And also remember, in 2022, because the house was proposed in the southeast part of the site, there was a seep over there, which has nothing to do with this application because there's no construction foundation proposed in that area of the site. Ms. Olivey gave a kind of a quick list of things that she wanted clarified. I wrote them down as fast as I could, but I don't believe there's anything in there that could not be treated by a condition of approval. We're clarifying whether Lot 5 is woods or not. So whatever clarifications she requested, we would be willing to do. We reviewed the Southwest Conservation District memo. It is completely generic. It says absolutely nothing about this site or the plants on this site, and that's why we did not address it in our comments tonight. So I think that now let me just go back to my team. Bill, Jason, David, any final comments? Anything you think we left out that we should respond to before we potentially close the hearing?
I have nothing else, unless
Thank you.
only to answer if anyone has a question. Yep.
Okay.
I've got nothing further either.
Okay. Dave
I have
Bjorklund, are you
nothing.
good? Okay.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Attorney Hollister, I do need to interject that we do need to open up the floor for public comment. I just wanted to.
Yes,
That's what I
understood.
was going to say.
Yes, understood. Thank you. I'll stop at this point.
Attorney Cordon, before we do public, did you have any comments? Any thoughts?
No, sir. Just if the commissioners are done with their questions, I would then go to public, recommend to you, sir, that we go to public comment. And then at which point, I think Mr. Hollister would have the last word, and then we could close the hearing.
All right. Mr. Chin, do we have anybody from the public?
If there's any member of the public that wishes to speak, please raise your hand at this time or press star on it if you're on the phone. And Ms. Epstein would like to speak, and I'll bring her in now.
Let me see if I can get a video here. Good evening. My name is Janet Epstein, 76 Old Dyke Road. This time my computer seems to be working. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I I just want to say simply that as one of many residents here, very concerned about our preserving our limited natural resources. I appreciate the rigor with which this application is being reviewed, especially since there is disagreement between experts. And I thank you very much for the work that you do for our natural environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Epstein.
If anybody else would like to make a comment, please raise your hand at this time by pressing this raise hand button at the bottom of your screen or press star 9 on the phone. Mr. Chairman, does not look like any other members of the public would like to speak at this time.
All right, thank you, Bill. All right, Attorney Hollister, you want to wrap it up before we close the public hearing?
So first thing I want to say is thank you to members of the commission and town staff for your time spent reviewing this application. We certainly have been heard and thoroughly, and no doubt about that. I'd be lying if I didn't express some level of frustration. We went into this application, please recall, as what we thought was a complete response to the denial in 2022. We thought when we designed the bridge house spanning the wetlands, instead of filling, instead of disturbing, that we had a complete answer to what the commission had said clearly in 2022 that it did not want to see. I think we have made the case that we comply with all of your regulations and all of your criteria for approval of this application, remembering, of course, that there are several conditions that we've agreed to: the conservation easement, the Caltech recharger management condition, the responses to Ms. Olive's list of clarification items, and of course your standard conditions. I had emails today with Attorney Cordone just to clarify the conservation easement and the Caltech condition, and I think he and I agreed that he would have the last word on those, but substantively that we had no disagreements. Again, I think the question you need to ask is, where is the site-specific quantified evidence of an adverse impact on a wetlands function? Mr. Kenny, who you all know to be one of the preeminent experts and who has been working on this site for 2.5 years, has said in no uncertain terms, all the primary functions will be preserved. I think Mr. Ryder had a generic response, but not a specific response. I think he eventually agreed that we can't quantify more shade versus less shade. I don't agree with the statement that all functions of a wetland are to be treated equally, and that any change, no matter how minute, needs to be accounted for. There is a scale. It has to be an adverse impact of a significant wetlands function. And I think we've met that standard. So we're prepared to have the hearing closed, and we would respectfully submit that we have met the standards for an approval. And again, I thank you all for the considerable time that you have spent listening to us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Thank you, Attorney Hollister. Before we move to close the public hearing, Attorney Cordone, any other comments?
No, I have no comments at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, and it's seconded by Bob Ferrigno. All right. I'll do a verbal. I'm a yes. Bob?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Carmine? John?
Yes.
Okay. We have officially closed the public hearing. All right, let's. All right, we've got minutes and we have to schedule the field inspection. Because of the lateness of the hour and also because we got material sent to us late and, you know, and of no fault in my pointing fingers, but I really think that, we need some time to, look through these before we, you know, decide to vote. And as we've been talking, I've been looking and, what I'm going to do is I want to propose that we do a special meeting on Monday, July 22nd, and we'll do it during the day, you know, to help people like around 2:30 to 3-ish. So I'd like to, Greg, can you do that? Go ahead, Bob.
I'd like to make a motion to have a request for a special meeting, July 22nd between 2:30 and 3.
And it would be a Zoom.
Bishop.
All right, and I need a second on that.
I'll give you a second.
David?
Okay.
Now I know most of you, because we talked before this as far as any vacations and things like that. The only one I was aware of, I know that John is away from like the 12th to the 19th. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there anybody else that's gone during this period? All the engineers and Colleen, everyone's good? All right, so the motion's been made and it's been seconded. I'm a yes. Bob?
Yes.
Yes. Greg?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Carmine?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Okay, so we will be doing a special meeting to do our determination on the application for I'm trying to look here. Bear with me 1 second. For application 24-06. Sorry about that. All right, let's do some
Through the chair,
okay.
Richard.
Go
Excuse me,
ahead.
through the so 2:30 or 3?
What do you wish? Better at 2:30 for you? You tell me.
Whatever the commission decides, be fine.
All right, let's do it at 2:30. That way, if we get involved, we've got a little bit of time there.
Tatiana, Mr. Chairman, just confirming that staff is available on that.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're good. Works for me.
thank you.
Okay.
Where will the meeting, Mr. Chairman, where will the meeting be?
I didn't hear you.
Zoom.
The meeting will be another Zoom meeting?
Yeah, another Zoom meeting. While I'm figuring out for the field inspection, Carmine, can you give us a motion on approving the minutes for June 4th, 2024?
So reviewing the minutes, I make the motion that the minutes from the June meeting be accepted.
Okay, I need a second. Seconded by Bob Ferrigno. All in favor?
Aye.
I see, it's unanimous. I'm gonna reach out to Tatiana. And actually, the commission, do you want to do the walk towards the end of July? You want to do it in the beginning of August? What are your thoughts? And this would be for application 24-20, which is 139 Canoe Brook Road. We've got to give them a little time to flag the wetlands. And I think that was the basic thing we really asked them to do.
Trees.
To the chair.
And mark the trees there. So, I mean, I think the most time consuming thing is the wetlands. If we do July 22nd for the special hearing, do you want to do the 23rd of July for the walk? How's that work out for you, John and Tatiana?
Does the commission want to walk it a bit closer to the
Yes.
next meeting?
That's why I'm asking. Do you want to do August? Do you want to do late July? You tell me.
When I walk by myself, I almost like to walk the weekend before the meeting. So I know what the condition is when we go into the meeting. We do now I might be able to join you. Maybe we'll have a problem because I'm retired, but if you do it now in July, we really don't know what's going to be. It's going to be like in September. I'd recommend at the end of August.
Okay,
My
our meeting
personal-
is, all right, thank you, John. Our meeting is September 3rd. So you want to do August 26th, which is a Monday?
Sure.
Okay, that's what we will do. August 26th at 3 o'clock. We will walk application 24-20, which is 139 Canoe Brook Road. Colleen, is there anything that needs to be brought forth to the commission? Anything I've missed?
No. I'm
Attorney
good, thank you.
Cordone? Anything before we close the meeting here?
No, sir.
All right, what I would ask is over the next couple of days, if you can send out anything that came in late, the response from the applicant, anything else that we're missing, Tatiana? That we need to, get to the commission?
No, I don't believe so. Just a response to Lentec. You should have the Southwest Conservation memo already. So that's the only thing that came in after that.
All right, the thing I would say, if because of the length of the application, if you're missing anything, call the office and we'll get you duplicate. If there be no, go ahead.
Just one suggestion. Does the Zoom meeting have to be put on a calendar that we're having a meeting?
Yes, Commissioner.
That has to be taken care of for it to be a legal meeting.
Yes.
I want to remind you. Okay.
No, I certainly appreciate that, and I know Colleen won't let us get away with not doing that. So
I will talk to you guys both.
Thank you. We'll make sure an agenda is posted on the town website.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts, comments? Okay, we're good. Thank you. And if there be no objection, I move to adjourn and thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a great
Good night,
day,
everyone.
great summer,
Good
and a
night.
good Fourth.
Have a
Good night.
Yeah, happy 4th.
Happy
Thank you.
4th.